Well, John, how are you? It's been a couple months, very eventful months for you,
Indeed.
most certainly. Um, for our viewers and listeners, John and I did a interview back in December of 2024, covering his remembrances from the '74 season, but more importantly, what he did post high school in terms of college career, and then onto his business career. We finished that, and then we kind of circled back after the interview and said, well, we kind of buried the lead because we were able to talk a lot about your personal accomplishments at Claro and some of the major projects that you worked on, but we never really talked about the company itself, and you were one of the co-founders of that. So we'd always intended to do a part two of this, and then 10 days
Then life
after.
happened.
Yeah. So pick it
Yeah.
up from there. It's okay. We're going to get together. You're going on vacation, but we'll circle
Yeah.
back after the holidays.
Yeah. So we had a huge family bucket list trip scheduled where we were going to go to South Africa, go to 3 different game preserves, spend some time in Cape Town, and then go to London for New Year's Eve. And anybody that has adult children, knowing that you can get them together and all agree to go on a trip like that, it was fantastic. So we had that all planned, all paid for, ready to go. And the week before, there was a big fire in Malibu called the Franklin Fire, and we were evacuated and living in a hotel in Santa Monica and literally watching the hills burn from our window. And we weren't sure we were going to be able to get back because they cordoned everything off to allow us, even though our house was not in harm's way at that time, to allow us back into Malibu, get our passports, travel documents, and pack. And so
Yeah,
literally,
it was a matter of days before you were. I mean,
yeah,
maybe 1 week before that you could even get back into your house,
yeah,
right?
we were leaving early Saturday morning, and we finally got in late Thursday afternoon, and it was touch and go there for a while. So I was starting to make alternative plans. So had a fantastic trip. Highly recommend to anybody to go do the safari stuff. It really is a bucket list stuff. Got to see every amazing animal and up close and personal, and spend that time with the family. Came back on January 2nd,
But
and
let's kind of back up a bit.
okay.
Okay, you had that evacuation and for the Franklin fire, which was the one in December, but you and I were talking, and this is you were in your current house, or not the house in Malibu since when?
So I've lived in Malibu since 85. I rented 85 to 90, bought my first house in 90, bought my current house-ish in July of 98. So I've been there 26 years when this most recent fire happened.
But in the life of your living in the home, this is the eighth time.
Well, that's what my wife told me. She was counting. We had evacuated 7 times before and been lucky 7 times. And then this last time, not so lucky. So yeah, this was our 8th time. And that practice helped us actually when we got around to it, to make sure we got some of the important stuff out, but still caught us a little unawares.
So in term what you're talking about is a lot of living in California, you get public service announcements about
Yeah.
whether it's earthquakes or whether it's fires or whatever. Be prepared, and here's a recommendation of what your go bag is. And I assume
Yes.
you had some variation of what your go bag was, since you had just really gone through a fire drill, literally
Yeah.
a fire drill in December.
Yes, my wife is better at that than I am, but yes, we had a list of things. We had done videotaping of the inside and outside of the house. So to get back to it, we get back from this incredible vacation, did New Year's Eve in London after going to South Africa. Get back on January 2nd. On January 7th, I have got to go to Chicago for our executive committee meeting, our year-end look over our shoulder, and then beginning of 25 look forward series of meetings. And so I get on the plane at 10:15, and at 10:30 the huge fire, the Palisades fire, breaks out, and
Oh,
it
I
starts.
didn't realize you weren't even in town.
All I had with me was the clothes on my back and a carry-on bag. And so I started watching it from Wi-Fi on the plane and texting with my wife. And they had warned us the night before of like life-threatening 80 to 100 mile an hour winds, which we'd never seen before. So my wife Deirdre had already packed
Well,
some things.
well, let's describe for the viewers that you're where you live. There's going out of Santa Monica. There's the famous Pacific Coast Highway 1,
Right, PCH.
which PCH, and Malibu is what? It's the longest snake
Yeah, it's
in
22 miles long and a mile wide.
and a mile wide. And John's house sat on a bluff, fairly close to Santa Monica end of the Malibu Pacific Coast Highway stretch. So
Yes.
you're closer to Santa Monica than anywhere else, but and literally right across the highway is the Pacific Ocean. So that's
Right.
how close your house is. You're literally
Right. We were right on the bluff. I actually had 2 lots, so a couple of acres on the bluff immediately above PCH looking out to the ocean. And between Santa Monica and us was Pacific Palisades, or is Pacific Palisades.
Right, but at certain times of the year in California, they have what's called the Santa Ana winds, which is almost a reverse wind. So the most of the year in most places, the prevailing wind is a west to east wind. But when the Santa Anas are blowing, the Santa Anas, for some reason, are an east to west. And John's property is taking the brunt of what's coming from the populated area of Southern California. That's where the wind is coming from.
Well, it actually starts all the way out in the desert. And because of that, the humidity is almost zero when you get Santa Ana. So it is, as you say correctly, the winds reverse, prevailing from onshore, coming on from the ocean, which has moisture in it, to turning around and coming from the desert. And there's super low humidity and high winds. And you get a spark, or sometimes arsonist, arcing wires, and fire start, and then they take off like crazy because it's so dry and because the winds are blowing so fast.
So you're literally on a plane headed for Chicago.
Yep.
And were you tipped off that something was going on when you're on the plane? So you're monitoring it from your phone?
Because because of the extreme nature of the warnings we had been given, literally we were getting things on our phone and on email, life-threatening winds, be prepared,
Right.
80 to 90 mile an hour. We've been watching very closely, and
you're on that
little,
Cal alert or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. And it was a little bumpy taking off out of LAX that day.
Right.
And then very shortly after that, I get a notice that says a fire has started, and they were trying to get the helicopter drops on it. And then I started texting with my wife. And then I can watch through various apps that Cal Fire Watch, et cetera, that let you see what's happening. And it just kept expanding so fast because of how big the winds were. And it was quite a ways away from us where this started. It was miles away from us where it started. And
near the Getty?
Several canyons. Oh, way further than the Getty. It was up Palisades Drive, which is off of Sunset, which is several canyons away from where we live, miles away from where we live. So at first I'm like, oh, there's another one, no big deal. But how fast it grew and how fast it started migrating our way started getting me very nervous and going back and forth. And my wife did not wait. She fortunately filled up a bunch of bags with a lot of her clothes and then emptied both of our safes, which is good because we never found one of them. And the other one was so burned. When we finally found it, it was so burned, if anything was in it, it would have melted. So we ended up, she left with the dog and with the contents of the safe, and I had, just to be careful, left her a couple of briefcases full of important documents. And she got out of there ahead of the official evacuation and went and stayed with my daughter. I'm watching this the whole way. I get to Chicago. I'm having dinner with some of the other folks on the executive committee. And I'm like, I'm not sticking around. I can't stick around. This
Yeah.
has gotten out of hand. I've talked to my wife a few times by then. I just booked a thing first thing in the morning, stayed up all
Right.
night talking to her, keeping an eye on it. And on the way back, was texting with somebody I knew who was on the fire brigade, who let me know that we lost our house.
Oh,
So I
jeez.
found out in the air during the day on the 8th that by the time I landed, I wasn't going to have a house.
Now, are you okay if I show the picture that you sent?
Yeah.
Is that all right? Okay. So this is the remnants of the house, and it. If I had the opportunity and the privilege to come and visit you, and it was the house was just spectacular. Not just the view of the Pacific Ocean, but in terms of the layout and the land that you had next
Yeah.
to it as well. That you were, I think you had gardens and you were beekeeping and everything. It was,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a huge loss for us. We'd been there a long time. We'd done some significant remodeling. We were able to acquire the lot next door. We then hired a landscape architect to work.
Which became available because of a previous fire, right?
Yeah. There had been a house there and it burned down in 93 and was sitting vacant. And through a series of things, I was able to pick that up. And then mainly to keep somebody from mansioning me right next door. And then we put a little shed on it for my wife's she shed, and then a beautiful landscaping. And like you said, we had beekeeping, and we did some gardening, and it was a little
Butterflies.
oasis. Yeah,
Yeah, you're attracting butterflies, and it was just it really was an oasis up there.
yeah,
Um, After you evacuated, I mean, you both you and Deidre kind of hit the ground running. Um,
yeah,
since it was what your eighth time and your most recent just being a couple weeks prior. Um, Explain to me how important it was that you didn't let any moss grow underneath your
yeah.
feet.
Well, knowing how many houses burned down on what we call the west side of Los Angeles, in between Palisades and Malibu, thousands, it turns out. We knew that everybody would be out looking for alternative housing. And so, as I said, it burned down over the night of the 7th and the 8th. In the morning of the 9th, we were out looking. And on the way looking for the first rental house, we got a call from the broker we had contacted and said, don't even bother going to the second one. It's already leased. We walk into the house that we've now eventually have leased, and there was 3 other couples in here looking at it.
Wow.
And this is like the morning after the fire. And prices are
Like the
going up
eighth. Yeah.
crazy. You can't imagine the price gouging that was starting to happen. I'd be embarrassed to tell people what we're paying for rent. And but we ended up getting this one. We're very fortunate. It's in a cool area. It's a real house, 4-bedroom, a nice rooftop deck, and within walking distance of the beach, and an area called Abbot Kinney, which has got lots of restaurants and stores. So we're feeling among the displaced that we're feeling fortunate to be able to have this, and also jumped right on the insurance. And the insurance has been playing nice with me, and I know a little bit about insurance claims. So
I was gonna say
we've been paid.
You know how to cut through the BS with the
Yeah,
insurance companies.
Yeah, that's been a good skill in this process.
And
So look, in the scheme of things, so many people we know have under insurance, no insurance, holes in their insurance, and I'm just feeling like we are among the fortunate that we have enough that we can rebuild there, and we're going down that process. We've already hired a contractor, designer, and architect. We are planning on rebuilding. Whether we actually end up living there again will depend on how much of a pain the city is in letting us rebuild. And there's also going to be a fight for resources. Like, even if you get everything lined up, just think of how many board feet of wood and drywall and roofing and all that stuff when you're rebuilding thousands of homes.
You're going to get contractors from out of the area and also out of the state to come in. We went through something similar up here in Santa Barbara after the Montecito mudslide.
Yep. Yeah.
Which, by the way, you had a hand in helping out some of those.
I did.
Elaborate on that a little bit. So, in 2017, there was the fire. which one was that one? That was the
I
one.
can't remember the name of it
Uh,
off the top of my head. But
Basically
they have a
started
name
in
for it.
Ojai and it made it all the way up to Santa Barbara. So
Yeah,
that scarred the whole Santa Ynez Mountains. And then about a month later was torrential downpour, which created just this horrible mudslide, and I think 14 people were
yeah,
died in the mudslide, and just all these houses were just lost. But
yeah.
now, because of your expertise,
Well, against that background, we got hired by there's a country club in the middle of Montecito called the Valley Club, and there's a second one called Burnham Woods, and very beautiful clubs, and they lost several holes, and they lost some of their structures on the property from that mudslide, and they were having a little trouble getting the insurance company to pay because slide and mud is excluded under most policies, but we're able to argue that the original cause, the proximate cause, was the fire. Fire is covered, but for the fire denuding the hillside, like you said, there wouldn't have been that type of mud flow, and therefore they covered it as a loss, and we helped them recover and get the insurance companies to pay up. So
yeah, yeah. So you use your expertise in that regard. We're almost 2 months removed from the fire event, but how have you settled in, and what are some of your tasks for the rebuild?
yeah, well, the
Are there
first
any
one,
lessons learned and things that you're going to do
yeah,
differently if you do rebuild, like cisterns and stuff
yeah,
like that?
we're working on what we call fire hardening. Well, first of all, many people, including yourself, Danny McLean, so many other people, Coach Fracassa. But I mean, just from my whole life, I had a It's a Wonderful Life moment where people were sending me notes and gifts. And I thought it'd be fun to wear since I'm more of a Rams fan these days. But somebody sent me this. And I mean, my wardrobe consisted of people sending me stuff for the first couple of weeks before I had a chance to really go shop because I literally had nothing.
Right.
And but what I had taken with me to Chicago, everything I had burned, including 2 cars. So I had to go out and get a car. Just can't even tell you. It's a full-time job recovering from something like this, dealing with the insurance, trying to replace things, dealing with all that. So thank you to everybody who expressed something to us, and for those specifically who were kind enough to help me get some things replaced. That burned up, some memorabilia. So that means a lot to me. Thank you.
Well, John, what goes around comes around, and your generosity has not been lost on many of us. You're part of what I call the 1974 Team Benevolent Society, and from time to time, you've been part of a group that, in one instance, purchased Coach's current car that he drives around, and another instance, you gave a 5-figure donation for our 50th reunion, which we all had a great time with, and we're all thankful for your contributions in that. So
No, I'm
good
happy to be
people
in a
deserve
position.
good things.
Thank you. Happy to be in a position to help a little bit. So anyways, in the rebuild, assuming we're going back, and if it takes 5 years, maybe I will be worn out. And we do have a second home in Hawaii that we're spending time in. That we may end up spending more time. I'm just in my last year before I retire, so everything is still a little bit up in the air. But right now, the answer is we're going to rebuild, and in that rebuild process, working with the architect and designer, we are specifically looking at some of the things you're talking about. There'll be no eaves on the house, which are the parts that come down and hang over so that won't allow for any embers to get up and underneath it.
Right.
We will have water features that will be designed to be fire barriers as well as a beautiful water feature. I had koi ponds in front, but they were like small and separated. We'll make them right up next to the house so that there'll be a fire barrier, but also hopefully have enough water in there that it can be a source for putting a pump in there. And because the firemen never got up to our neighborhood because the fires were so big and so intense, and there's only one way in and one way out, they just didn't go up. So you have to be able to defend it yourself if you have to. Mm-hmm. So things like that. We're actually looking at putting on a rooftop garden. So as it's facing the ocean on the roof, have there be a guard in there, which would be nice to be able to walk around and have a killer view. But also, if embers fall on it and stuff, they fall on fire resistant greenery. Yeah,
Right.
that we can put sprinklers on and have it wet. So we're thinking our way through all of that, getting advice on the best way to do that, and hoping that this isn't going away. It ain't getting better right now. So hoping that we can come up with the best ways to defend it.
What kind of timing are they giving you at all, if anything?
You know what? The best estimates are probably 3 years between getting debris removal, permits approved, construction done. So if it's done in 3 years, we'll feel fortunate. But I just don't know, honestly. There's some from what they call the Woolsey fire from 2018, and there's a bunch of them that aren't rebuilt yet. So, and part of that's hassles, and part of it is people not pushing as hard, but some of it's just the nature of the beast of getting through all of the approvals, and they're doing expedited approvals through the governor's office. Issued some orders, and we're trying to convince the city of Malibu to loosen it, because one of the things the city has always done is to make it hard and limit development, to not let it become the next Miami Beach. They want to keep the nature of the community, which I understand, but let us just rebuild our houses. So
right. There's a lot of people displaced, and will be for
a
couple
years.
Yeah. Well, you got the love and the prayers of your band of brothers at Brother Rice. And we wish you the best on that whole recovery.
Incredible number of notes and calls and stuff. So it was great.
Well, let's kind of skip tracks here and circle back on the reason why we were
going to get together again. Yeah.
Part two, but it's important that I think everyone understands where you're at right now. Things are settling in, but it's still kind of a crazy thing to go through. But the reason why we wanted to get together for part two was we kind of buried the lead on part one. I think you did a really good job of explaining some of the major projects you worked on, but there it was quite a career jolt for you. Your transition from working with Arthur Andersen's consulting group, and circumstances around that no longer being the case, and the formation of Claro, and you were one of the co-founders. So can you kind of walk me through the early years of the Claro Group?
Sure. So I think I told before that I made the transition from being a active lawyer to I'm a lawyer on inactive status, became a consultant, was a partner at Arthur Andersen. Andersen had spun out its consulting group, which became Accenture, and we're rebuilding its business consulting within Andersen. I was part of that group, and I went there in 2004. And the way I describe it, I had several good years and 6 shitty months because we had in 2002, I was there from 98 to 2002, and in 2002 Enron happened, and the most successful accounting and consulting firm in the country went from top of the heap to dissolved in a matter of months, and we were all scrambling, and we had opportunities all over the place. But at the end of the day, we decided we would go with this interim firm called LECG that allowed us to take a group of our people and just run our own P&L inside of LECG, Law and Economic Consulting Group. Mm-hmm. And we went in there with the idea that we were going to leave, but we just needed a soft landing while we got our feet underneath us. They froze our capital. We didn't have the money we thought we were going to have. Mm-hmm. So a few partners there, 4 of us, put together and invested. Instead of full distributions, we put money aside with the idea that we were going to pull the trigger. And then in September of 2005, we self-funded, no lines of credit, no backing other than ourselves, and wrote checks to start the company. So we started the Claro Group in September 2005. We had the right to leave with our people and with our clients. So we
what size is your startup?
So we started initially. We had somewhere around 30 people total, which was a little scary because our business plan called for the partners not to take a draw for at least the first 6 months, because we had to pay rent and we had to pay salaries and we had to buy laptops and we had to have servers and we had all of that kind of stuff. And even if you could bring clients with you, that's very disruptive to start something like that. But we were deciding we're going to bet on ourselves, and particularly after what happened with Enron, we're like, we didn't have anything to do with that. That happened out of the Houston office, didn't know anything about it. Just it was imposed upon us, and we'd rather bet on ourselves.
Yep.
And have been having some good success. So we opened the doors, and from day one, I was on the board, and we just started running with our head down as fast as we could forward, and seeing what would happen, and things kind of took off from there.
So you started off a staff of about 30. Initial revenue those first couple of years.
First year was in the 10 million-ish range. Part of that was because we did alternative fee, contingency fee deals, as well as time and materials. And so we had a couple of them that were on the vine that came in. So our timing was very good for a first year or two with a few of those that we already had.
Yeah, you had a built-in clientele that you
Yes.
brought, from the implosion of Arthur Andersen and the consulting. Yes. You had clients that.
Yeah, basically what we had started to build at Andersen, those clients went with us when we went to LECG. We added to that, and then when we left, they followed us again. So we had very loyal clients, and there was nobody left at the old firm that could do what we do. So it was pretty easy from that perspective. It was a nightmare of all the paperwork and getting everything set up. And anybody that started a business, just having the 401k plan that you start for your people and the healthcare plan, and that it's just unbelievable number of things you have to do to get it going. But I had some great partners that did a fabulous job with me, and we had a nice combination where a lot of these guys were CPAs and I was a former lawyer. So we had various skill sets covered, and it worked well. Yeah.
Knew how to budget. That was part of the expertise.
They definitely did that. They budgeted very conservatively, which was interesting, because a lot of these startups you see people lever the hell out of it, right? They put a little bit of money in, they go get a loan, and they bet on the company.
You were just investing your own money. You weren't getting venture capital money or anything.
No VC money. Nope, nothing.
All
just
built
us.
Internally.
Yes.
And the core group was what, four people or?
Yeah, we had 4 senior guys, and there's a handful of other people that put in a little bit of money too, that then they became senior folks later on. But there was 4 of us that put in the real money to get the thing started off the ground. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What were some of your greatest challenges in that startup?
I'd say one of the biggest ones is that we had big time clients that had come with us from Andersen, and getting them to the types of cases we worked on were material in the C-suite, and getting them to hire you when nobody's ever heard of the Claro Group, and trying to say, even though we still have the skill set, corporate America is generally gun shy, and it's easy to say, well, if you're with Andersen, or if you're with PwC, or you're with any of the McKinsey or Accenture, you're with any of the big names, it's okay. But taking a risk on somebody that they've never heard of. So overcoming that, we had a couple of early successes that then we were able to build on. Right away in 2005, we started in September, and that's right when Hurricane Katrina hit. And through a prior relationship, I flew out to Las Vegas, and I got somebody to open the door to introduce me to the risk manager of MGM. And she took me for 15 minutes and ended up hiring me on the spot and sent me down to Biloxi. And we worked on the biggest claim, one of the biggest claims, if not the biggest claim, on Hurricane Katrina, which turned out to be a multi-year project and a huge success. And we recovered $650 million for them for a casino that just got basically wiped out by the hurricane. So right away, we were able to get some chops on a big matter with a big time client behind it, as well as some that we brought with us. And that just builds on itself when you do it. But I think by far our hardest thing in the beginning was name recognition and getting hired on the big ones.
Building brand recognition when you had no brand to begin with.
Exactly. Nobody had heard of us.
And you're competing in a market with heavily branded companies like McKinsey and the like. beyond the startup, where was Claro when you first started having discussions with Stout?
Well, there's a long part in between there.
Okay, well,
So
fill
yes,
in,
yeah, I'll fill in the blank.
connect the
So
dots. Yeah,
I won't give you the whole thing, but basically we grew and we ended up with offices in 5 cities: Chicago, Houston, LA, DC, and a small one in Austin. We also had added a healthcare group. That group grew pretty big, and at our peak, we were at about 225 professionals. The healthcare just had different capital needs and different client base. So we ended up spinning out and letting the management there do it, management buyout, MBO, where they
gotcha.
were able to buy out over time, spun that back out, refocused then on our core stuff. And then went through COVID and learned what Zoom was. And
Yeah.
I was running the firm. Oh, by then I was chairman, and I'm running the firm on Zoom, trying to keep us together, not know what's going to happen. And then about 6 weeks into COVID, it turns out we had all the skills everybody needed. Like we have a lot of financial, economic skills, and people needed to figure out how to run their businesses and can we do this and what are our cash flow analysis and running things remotely. We were able to do because people are pretty facile with working from home, and we got set up our VPN so everybody could work from wherever. And it took off again after we had a little bit of a dip like everybody did and a little bit of a panic, and we came out of it. And we had prepared this in 2008. Because we were not levered up like so many others, and when the economy had gone down, we were prepared for, when things went down. And also we were offering contingency fee deals to people when it's easy. It's easier to sell when people don't have money to spend, to say, I'll take it on a contingency. If we help you get recoveries or help you do well, you'll give us a bigger piece of it. And so that started helping too. So that's a little bit of the background and in between. In early 2022, we're looking around for succession. What do we do? I'm getting more senior. There's another guy that's my predecessor had retired, who was my kind of co-equal. He had already retired, and we just needed to look around and say, from a succession planning and from a broader base for all of our people, what should we do? Mm-hmm. So we hired an investment banker, and by then we were quite a bit bigger, and we, again, still didn't have any debt. We didn't have any other investors in us. So we became a unicorn in early 22. If you remember back then, money was free. I mean, the interest rates were in the 2s to low 3s. So there were PE firms all over the place, as well as other consulting firms that were very interested. We went through a whole process, had management meetings, narrowed it down, had initial interest letters, and we had offers from a number of them. Several were PE firms that wanted to grow us as the platform, they call it, and I just didn't think that was the right thing for a lot of reasons.
Define PD firms.
Oh, private equity firms.
PE. I thought you said okay.
Yeah, PE, private equity firms that wanted to give us money, have us be the name and platform, and then start acquiring other people, grow up, and then sell it. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to maintain more of a culture that we had. And so when we met with the folks at Stout, who are Craig Stout went to Michigan State undergrad, Michigan State Business School, Michigan-based originally, and one of my Stout partners gave me this, that it was a good fit. It was, some Midwest guys that had done well, and they were a bigger firm that had themselves taken on PE money just recently. And it was a perfect blend of both, where they had a culture where they had an existing consulting firm, but they also had the money engine behind them for growth. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up doing a deal with them in October of 22. And we're on a pretty good growth trajectory. And a lot of our people have found some leadership roles within Stout. And that's what's going on. And I'll be done by the end of this year, probably, maybe carry over a little bit into 2026. But I took on a role where I became the co-president of one of our big divisions for a couple of years. And now I'm vice chairman, and on my way out the door. Vice chairman just means you're a paid pontificator.
Well, I was on the website before we got together today, and you're in the leadership group as
Yeah.
vice chairman.
Yeah.
So that's quite an accomplishment. From basically a startup to let's see, first year billings of about 10, 15 million, something like that. Before the merger, where are we talking ballpark?
Uh, I still have a little bit of NDAA stuff, I think,
Right.
somewhere in place, but we in the 40 million range, and with very good margins and good EBITDA.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. So
Yeah.
that's well, and it's also, it's one of the things that we talked about at the reunion was that we went through, and you personally, I think, starting in 8th grade, I think had just 2 defeats and 1 tie in the 5
Yeah.
years you played football.
Yeah.
But
It's pretty insane.
But life is not always going to be on that steady success train, and sometimes you get derailed. And what you were, how you were able to transition from the shit show that you had post Enron with Anderson to what you were able to create with your co-founders, and then ultimately sell to Stout is just a tremendous accomplishment, and
Yeah.
you should be very proud.
Oh, thank you. I feel fortunate. I really do. Good partners, good younger people working with us. We had a no asshole philosophy. We said no to a lot of people to join us. We'd rather have fun and work with good people than have somebody that's a hassle all the time. And even if they can bill more and bring in more clients.
Don,
And that was,
if you heard Don's interview, that he almost said the exact same thing as he was building his company.
yeah, I did. And it resonated with me because that really is the case for me. There's multiple ways to grow, and we could have grown much bigger, much faster. And it just wasn't, we wanted to grow profitably, and we wanted to have fun, and we wanted to work hard, and we wanted to be the best at what we did. But we wanted to enjoy ourselves and enjoy our partners. So
Yeah.
I think we did a pretty good job with that.
Well, congratulations, John. It's been one hell of a career for you. It's not something that I didn't think you were able to accomplish. I think we knew way back, even in high school, that you were someone that had very strong capabilities, and it was a lot more than just football back then. And if you recall our reunion and some of the guys catching up with them, they have similar stories that over the course of the next.
Oh, I'm so impressed with the group as a whole. Thank you. Very kind of you to say that. And like I've said, I had a hand in this, but I also had some really good partners, and we made some good strategic decisions, and things have worked out. And, right now I've been focusing on kind of being the Phoenix again here, out of the ashes of Enron, we grew, and
another building project for you.
Now I'm doing it out of the ashes, out of the literal ashes of my house again. So,
well, best of luck on that rebuild. I know there's going to be some bumps along the way. I think both you and Deidre have very strong heads on your shoulders, and you'll get what you want. You'll be back, and as we said when the news first came out. Right now, it's just things. You got your health. You got 2 very healthy and happy kids that you've raised, and it's just a rebuild.
Yeah, I mean that's really how we have to look at it. And every now and then you're like, oh damn, that burned too, and oh god, that's gone, and all the, I had 26 years worth of stuff from that house that is gone. But it is just stuff at the end of the day, and you can get more stuff.
And we were able to replace some of the stuff, at least device related stuff.
And look, I got it right here, man.
All right,
here's one. Thank you.
There it is.
From Coach.
There it is. I love it. The logo. You're just like Jerry West.
Yeah, not quite, but yeah, I hear you. So
all right, John, all the best.
All right. Hey, Ted, thanks for doing these. These are really fun for me to do, but also to listen to the other folks as well. So thanks for taking the time.
I think you're going to like it. This is the 4th in a series of hopefully many more.